Please drop a like and comment your own story. And join us as we explore the internet's craziest glitch stories. Story 1. Not sure if this qualifies as a glitch, but it is a déjà vu-esque story. Except what I felt I was experiencing for a second time wasn't just all in my head. I was hanging out with a guy DJ at the time. He had taken me to one of his relatives' houses, an aunt, uncle, and 2 cousins. I was almost sure I'd been there before, at least 9 months prior to this. I recognized the people, the voices, the bedroom with the floor practically crumbling away, and the junk all over the halls. I remembered it all, but DJ convinced me it was my first time there. None of his relatives remembered me. We smoked and drank, same as my first experience. Sat in the bed, next to the floor with a bunch of holes in it. It was not a tidy house at all. And we talked about life, same as the first time. Then DJ wants me and him to sign the wall in black Sharpie. A bunch of names in a variety of handwritings litter every wall. Friends, lovers, relatives, over 50 different names of people that have been in this room before me. What's weird is I remember signing this wall before, but neither DJ, nor his family, even remember me doing so. I go to sign towards the corner between 2 adjacent walls. Same place I remember doing so. And my name's there. My handwriting. The cousin that was there said it might have been a friend of his from 2 years ago, also with my name. Same spelling perhaps, but he wasn't sure. But it was MY handwriting. I signed my name underneath the first signature, and they're a little shocked, but not as shocked as they should have been. Both signatures with my name were written in the exact same way. I even dotted my I with a star, a force of habit I have. I'm not sure what to make of this experience. The whole time I was having déjà vu, and if my name wasn't there, I would have believed I was just imagining being there. But now there are 2 signatures on that wall in that house belonging to the relatives of my ex-lover, written in black Sharpie around 9 or 10 months apart from each other. And DJ's family still swear they'd never even seen me a day in their lives. Another time, I was coming home from work. My dog, Baby Girl, always comes to the door and barks whenever I am unlocking the door. She usually keeps barking until I pet her, and she'll go sit on the recliner. Well, one of these days, I didn't even make it to my room after I sat down, and I heard her bark. She was standing in front of the door, same exact position as she was when I got home. Then she started wagging her tail and licking the air, like she licked my legs mere moments ago. She walked in 2 circles, same as she did just moments ago, and she calmly walked to the recliner, jumped on it, and laid down, rolling onto her back like she did moments ago to allow me to pet her belly. Except now she did all of this while I was standing in front of my doorway, too stunned to go in. It was like a phantom version of myself came in after me, startling her, then petting her, then going with her to the recliner and patting her belly. The time between me coming home and then her doing this bizarre reenactment was less than 15 minutes. She's never done this before, and to this day she still hasn't. Weird. Story 2. I went camping once with my husband. We stayed at a national park campground. Each campsite has a spot to park your car, and a few yards away, a flat area to pitch a tent and build a fire. It's wooded all around, lots of forest. A narrow paved road connected all the sites, and off at the end of the road was a sidewalk that led to a public bathroom with showers and toilets. It was late autumn, pretty cold, so there was only 1 or 2 other families camping there. So, in the middle of the night, I woke up and needed to pee. I really didn't want to walk all the way to the bathroom in the dark woods alone, but my hubby was sleeping and I couldn't wait till morning. So I put a lantern on the trunk of our car to make sure I'd find my way back safely, and I grabbed another lantern to take with me. The bathroom was downhill from where we were, within visual distance, just to make this clear. It was not close, but you could see the lights from our tent. Lantern in hand, I set off. Reached the bathroom, used it, and started back. When I got to the paved road, I turned right and headed uphill towards our campsite, and almost immediately ended up standing in a deserted campsite. No car, no tent, just dirt and gravel. I was bewildered because I had been walking on the paved road. I hadn't turned off into a campsite. So I turned around, saw the bathroom floodlights behind me, and headed back that way. Once I was there, I reoriented myself and set off again on the road. Uphill, to the right. I knew I was going the right way. Until I ended up in the empty campsite again. I turned around, very confused. Retraced my steps to the bathroom. I looked all around. There was no deserted campsite in view. Just the paved road and lots of trees. I stepped onto the road, headed to the right uphill, and ended up in the same deserted campsite again. At this point, I was pretty freaked out. I felt like I was in an episode of The X-Files. I tried one last time. Back to the bathrooms, then head up the road. This time, I managed to stay on the road and soon saw the lantern I'd left on the trunk of our car. I hurried back, relieved beyond words. The next morning, in daylight, I looked for that campsite, to see if I could figure out why I kept ending up there. It didn't exist. I could not find any campsites across from the bathrooms. I still enjoy camping, but I'll never go to the bathroom alone, in the middle of the night again. Story 3. 10 years ago, I used to go to the beach every single day from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. We had a huge friend group. I had a best friend. We were super close, we'll call her Carrie. And then there was this young girl who used to work at the Slurpees stand, we'll call her Hannah. She was nice to us, she would give us candies etc. First thing first is sometimes my friend Carrie would say stuff that never happened before. She'd sort of zone out and say, "Remember that time you met your favorite celeb at that one place that one day?" And I was like, "That legit never happened, I wish it did." Or, "Remember when you went to the beauty store and bought that one thing? Also legit never happened." I used to think she was crazy, that it confused me. Anyways, weird thing was Hannah. The girl that worked at the stand would always talk about a baby girl she had. Like a kid / she would say, "I have to pick her up from daycare / last night, I had to stay up to feed my baby. She was born in September, she goes to XXX daycare." But turns out she didn't have any baby BC. My mom knew her best friend, which told her that wasn't true. Was I mishearing things? I convinced myself I was mishearing things. I swear I would hear her talk about this baby with everyone while she was selling them candies and stuff. One day Carrie, my bestie, that always used to say weird things, told me, "I saw Hannah and her little girl yesterday. She was with her at the restaurant." And I would be even more confused BC. She apparently did not have a child at all. Fast forward 4 years later, Hannah randomly got pregnant and had a little girl that was born in September. I lost all contact with Carrie after a fight, but all the things she had told me in those weird moments started coming true. I noticed it. I cannot find Carrie on social medias anymore. I cannot explain what happened. I think it was a glitch in the Matrix. I also swear Hannah from the Slurpees stand was always talking about her baby girl, which ultimately she did have, but only 4 years later. All the things she had said about the daycare she attended, that it was XXX daycare, that she was born in September etc., they all came true. Cannot explain it though. I think it was a glitch in the Matrix. If any of you can explain it, I would be relieved. Story 4. I was the only one in the store, and a car pulled up to one of the 2 double-sided pumps out front. Pretty standard white 4-door. I'm not great with car brands, but it was a little nicer, like upper middle class, and probably only a few years old. A woman gets out and starts walking towards our door like she's in a daze. Legit, this woman looked like she saw a ghost. She wanders up, sort of freezes at the door for a second with a 1,000-yard stare before opening it and coming in. She didn't go looking for anything, didn't start shopping, just sort of stood inside for what felt like ages. Again, bars are still open, so I think maybe she's a little drunk or had a rough night or something, so I give the usual, "Welcome to gas station. Let me know if you need any help finding anything." And she finally notices me and immediately asks me the weirdest damn question I have ever been asked on the job. "You can see me, right?" "Yeah." "Like what else do you say?" She breaks down crying in the middle of my store, so I'm already headed around the corner to see what's up. I have my cell phone out in case I need to call the cops or something for her. I get her to sit down on a nearby pallet of soda, and I'm grabbing her a bottle of water, and after she catches her breath a little she tells me, "I thought I had died." Again I'm thinking maybe she is on something, but she's a middle-aged woman who looks like a standard local suburban housewife. We're a pretty boring township without your average junkies like you'd find closer to the cities. So she asks if she can call her husband to pick her up and wait with me. She has her own phone and does so, not really telling him anything either, just where she is at and if he can come get her. He says he'll call an Uber and be there as soon as possible. We're waiting. So far nobody else has showed up, so I'm keeping most of my attention on her, and eventually she starts to explain to me. I was driving home from dinner with my co-workers, and as I'm driving through, nearby intersection I recognized. A truck ran a red light and hit me. Now, her car is still at the pump without a scratch on it. She goes on to say she remembers her car being pushed into a pole, going airborne, and then nothing. I tried to calm her down, letting her know that her car is out front and it looks fine, but she insisted that she completely blacked out, woke up in an ambulance for a split second, passed out again, and then woke up again in the driver's seat of her car, at the intersection waiting for the light to change, perfectly fine. This whole thing freaked her out so badly that she drove to the nearest anything, us, just so she could get out of the car. Husband eventually showed up to get her. He asked if I had any idea what happened, and even though she sort of explained to me, I just shrugged because no, I had no idea what was happening anymore. She reluctantly got into the passenger seat of the car, and he drove them back home. That was hours ago, after which I worked an entire shift at the station, trying to wrap my head around what the absolute hell I had just witnessed. Story 5. If you remember in the movie The Matrix, Neo, after he took the correct pill and trained a bit, was able to see the world as a series of lines and numbers streaming down. He no longer saw the world as textured and colored shapes, he saw the wireframe modeling instead. The on-screen depiction was easy for us to interpret and be able to see the room even if it was a wireframe model. One morning my wife called out, "Breakfast is almost ready." I opened my eyes to see our bedroom with an overhead fan as a wireframe model, no streaming numbers, with the fan rotating also as a wireframe. The background was black with a fluorescent green wireframe grid defining the walls, door, closet door, etc. I wondered, what was I dreaming about just before I opened my eyes? And I closed my eyes to reconnect with the dream. Nothing. So I opened my eyes to still see the room in wireframe, although it was beginning to fade to normal reality. I got up and ate breakfast and related the strangeness to my wife. Her response, "Weird, huh? It has happened twice since. One time my wife woke me by wiggling my big toe, and when I looked at her she was a moving wireframe. The oddest part was to see her lips moving in wireframe. Just for reference, no funny cigs, no drinking, no drugs. I've asked numerous people if they had anything like this happen. So far no one. To my memory I have not had any wireframe dreams, and had not been thinking about anything wireframe. I've never used wireframe modeling, or had any other experience with it. So, anyone else out there? Did I open my eyes before the textures had been applied to the wireframes? Was I in an hypnopompic state that interfered with reality? How about you? Wireframe matrix glitch? What do you think it was? My sleep doctor recently asked me, "How is the hallucinations going?" My answer, "What hallucination?" To me it wasn't an hallucination, it happened. It only happens once every couple of years, so to me it's no big thing. Just interesting. Weird but interesting. Story 6. I'm not sure if this is a glitch or some kind of horror story, but it remained a mystery to me until to this day. This moment happened a few years ago. Me and my sister shared a bedroom. I sleep on a bed that was put closely to a wall, and she sleep on a mattress on the floor beside my bed. At that time she liked to hang out with her friends, and almost every day will come home after midnight or sometimes have a sleepover at her friend's house. Our bedroom lock is broken, so sometimes it gets stuck, and if we close the door we cannot open from outside, unless we use a key. One day, I went to sleep before my sister come home, but I make sure to open the door a bit so the door is not locked. I like to sleep while my face is facing the wall. The first knock. After a deep sleep, suddenly I wake up as I hear someone knocking the door. I was too sleepy to get up, so I just turn my head to see if my sister is already home, and I can see her sleep on the floor, but her face is facing the other side, so I just see her back. And then I turn over my head back to the wall while talking to her. "Hey, you go open the door, see who is that?" I assume that time it was my mother to check whether my sister is already home. After that I go back to sleep without checking if she hear it or not. The seconds knock. I'm not sure how many hours or minutes after I sleep back for the second time, but suddenly I hear someone knocking the door again. At that time I'm quite pissed off because my sleep is being disturbed by the knocking, so I said, "Erg, who's that? Go look and open the door." Well, turn over my head again to my sister, but she's not there. Because I was confused I instantly get up and go check the bathroom that was attached inside our room, but she's not in there. I go open the door, and then there she is, standing in front of me. I ask in confuse, "I thought you already home before?" But she looked at me with a weird face and said, "No, I just got home." After that she go to sleep and left me confusing. Until today it give me creeps to think about who's sleeping with me at the first knock. Because let's say if I confuse and got switched the order, here knock, no sleeping sister. I open the door, my sister just got home, and then here again a knock, see a sleeping sister, not open the door. But why I even think about asking her if she's already home if I never see her before. Story 7. I wear contact lenses daily, and, about 20 years ago, as I took the right lens out of my eye in order to clean and store it, it disappeared into thin air. I looked everywhere. I was standing at the bathroom sink at the time, on the back of the sink, on my clothing, on the floor, even on the wall in front of me, but could not find the lens. These were monthly lenses and I had more, so I thought no more about it and just opened a new lens to use the following day. Months passed, during which time I thoroughly cleaned the bathroom, the sink, the tiles on the wall, and the bathroom floor several times. I'd almost forgotten about the disappearing contact lens. Then, one morning about 4 months later, having already inserted both contact lenses, I was stood at the bathroom sink and about to wash my hands. I was looking at the bathroom tiles on the splashback above the sink and saw a contact lens appear and fall onto the sink. I have no explanation for how this happened. As I've pointed out, I'd cleaned all the nearby surfaces several times and I'd searched quite diligently for the lens when it disappeared. One of the strangest aspects of this story is that a contact lens that's not stored in lens solution dries out pretty quickly, shrinking and becoming quite hard, rather than soft as they do when stored correctly. The contact lens that appeared was still soft, as if it had just come out of solution or just been removed from the eye. Story 8. I have a few lifelong glitches that keep replaying year after year. When merging onto a highway, there will always be someone in the right lane exactly where I need to be exactly when I need to be there. Not a little bit forward or a little bit back, exactly alongside. The same when I'm on the highway. Whenever I get to an on-ramp, there will be someone trying to merge exactly alongside. Doesn't matter what day or time it is. It could be 2 a.m. on an otherwise deserted road. Doesn't matter. The only appearance of another vehicle for the last hour will be directly alongside at an on-ramp. Always 100% of the time. Speaking of driving along at night on a deserted road. Whenever I do that, and no one else is around, the street lights ahead of me will go out one by one as I approach. Looking in the rear-view mirror as I pass, I can watch them all turn back on again in reverse sequence as I depart. Always 100% of the time. I must be extremely cautious on any road with cross streets or T-intersections. Whenever approaching intersections, there will always be someone who thinks he can make it. Always 100% of the time. Any line/queue I get into will immediately become the slowest one. There's no point switching. If I do, the one I left will speed up and the one I get into will slow down. Always 100% of the time. Speaking of queues, I am invisible. No one notices I'm present and will step right in front of me as if I'm not even there. Always 100% of the time. For years I saw this as a glitch in the Matrix. Some way for the Matrix to torment me just for sadistic giggles. Then I realized that I am the carrier of the glitch. It is something I impose on the world around me. I really don't want it. I wish I could pass this power on to someone else. Story 9. Yes, I feel this story I previously wrote fits a glitch in the Matrix. This was an experience a friend of mine had in England in regards to what could be possibly called a dimensional bleed-through or a glitch in the Matrix. Several years ago, my friend John was visiting a small farmhouse somewhere in the south of England, and as he was walking across the yard towards the house, he heard the sound of horses galloping up behind him. When he turned round, he saw several men dressed armor-wielding swords. Some of them dismounted and ran into the barn, stabbing their swords into the hay, and others were checking the house out as if they were looking for someone. The leader of the group was hollering, "Where is he? He's got to be here." A short while later, after they found no one, they left. John was dumbfounded to say the least. After returning to the city, he told his friend of his experience. The friend asked if he could accompany James on his next visit to the farm. They went the following weekend, and neither one of them was disappointed as the very same scenario occurred again in the same order. Only this time, when the leader called out, "Where is he?" John, the silly bugger, said, "I'm here." Much to his surprise, the leader came over and thrust his sword in John's belly. John said he was mystified because he actually felt the sword going into his belly and then being withdrawn. The soldiers left after that. John's friend's jaw was almost hanging to his knees after witnessing the event. I told John he should have said, "He's over here," and then pointed to his friend. Wouldn't that have given him something to talk about later? Several weeks later, John researched the history of the area and found out that there were soldiers burning villages in that area. John's conclusion to the incident was that he and his friend had both walked into a different dimension or time period and actually became part of it. I'd say it was a bleed-through into a possible past incarnation. The thing that's puzzling is that his friend also witnessed the strange happening. Story 10. This was years ago. I must have been around 13. I remember the fever clearly. It wasn't too bad at first, just the usual dizziness, a pounding head, that fuzzy feeling like your thoughts are wrapped in cotton. My parents took me to this local doctor, one they trusted, a man with a shiny stethoscope and a tired smile. He gave me some medicine, tiny white pills that looked harmless, but they weren't. That medicine was some kind of bad juju. I remember waking up that night drenched in sweat, my skin slick like I'd been pulled out of a river. But it wasn't the fever anymore. It was something else, something deep and unnatural. I blinked up at the ceiling, but it didn't look like the ceiling I'd known my whole life. It felt off, like it was pretending to be a ceiling. The shadows were too still, the air too heavy. For a second, I had the horrible thought that the universe had folded inside out while I slept. Everything felt wrong. Not just physically, wrong on a soul level. The walls felt fake. The pillow felt fake. The sound of the ceiling fan wasn't comforting anymore. It sounded like it was mimicking the rhythm of something alive. Even my pajamas felt like they didn't belong to me, like they were part of some stage costume for a play I didn't remember auditioning for. I tried to go back to sleep, to make the world snap back into place, but it didn't work. I remember clutching the blanket, whispering small prayers to no one in particular. Every time I closed my eyes, I felt like I was falling into static. The kind of static you get when the TV signal dies, and all that's left is the hiss of nothingness. By morning, the fever had broken. My parents were happy, relieved even. I wasn't. I felt hollow, like something had brushed against me in the dark and left its fingerprint behind. At breakfast, I told them, "That doctor gives weird medicine. I don't ever want to go to him again." They laughed it off, saying I was being dramatic. But I meant it. I knew it wasn't normal. Something about those pills didn't just treat the body, they touched something else. Something they shouldn't have. 2 months later, my dad caught a fever. Nothing serious, just a mild one, but he went to the same doctor. He took the same kind of pills. I didn't say anything, but I felt uneasy the moment he brought them home. I remember the smell of them, metallic, sharp, like ozone before a thunderstorm. Around that time, Dad was under a lot of stress. His business wasn't doing well. He'd been working long hours, barely sleeping, barely eating. He looked thinner every day. Still, he didn't believe in bad luck or curses or whatever I thought was happening. He said stress was just life tightening its grip. The next morning, he had an early meeting. I woke up before dawn to the sound of a thud, a heavy flesh and bone kind of sound that makes your stomach drop. Mom screamed his name. I ran to their room. He was on the bathroom floor. He'd fallen, and there was this awful smell in the air, like metal and sweat and shame. His face was twisted on one side. He was conscious but not really there, his eyes darting around like he couldn't understand the world anymore. Like he'd woken up in the same broken simulation I had that night months before. The doctors at the hospital said it was a paralytic attack. They blamed stress. They blamed salt. They said his blood pressure was too high, his heart too strained. Everyone nodded like it made sense. But I knew. I knew it wasn't just stress. It wasn't just salt. It was the same thing that had touched me. The same thing that made the air feel fake and the world hum like bad circuitry. That medicine, the one the doctor gave us, wasn't healing anything. It was disconnecting something, severing some invisible thread between us and reality. They can talk about medical science and diagnosis all they want, but I've felt that emptiness, that static, that moment when the matrix flickers and something looks straight back at you through the cracks. I never went back to that doctor again. Story 11. I've had some weird stuff go on in my life. I'll give you 2 cases, and you can decide which is weirder. First one was in December 2011. I was attending Mass with my family when I see someone walk into the church. He was astonishingly beautiful, but what caught my attention was that he looked exactly like one of the characters in a story I'd been working on. I was in shock throughout the whole Mass, but it got weirder when we got up to receive the Eucharist. We passed by where he sat, and I turned to look at him and noticed 2 things. He had glowing blue eyes. It wasn't because of the lightning or contacts. Trust me, I've looked for contacts that could create that glow, and he looked shocked to see me. His eyes and mouth are wide like he was shocked, maybe scared. Then as we go back to our seats, I notice him speed walking out of the church. I have never had anyone react to me like before. I apparently have lookalikes in the extreme running around, but everyone else that interacted with them were on positive terms. And something tells me it's me and not them. Second one was more like a glitch of everything. For several weeks my entire family had experiences ranging from, "Yeah, okay, that was a little weird," to "WTF?" We would hear people call our names, hear and even feel events that happened years ago. One time I was folding clothes and I heard a giggling, little girl in dress shoes come down the stairs. Somehow I knew that she was me. Me when I was very young and on my way to an event. She came down the stairs, then pranced into the living room. It was strange because I couldn't see her, but I could hear her and somehow sense this area of space that she was occupying, but at the same time not. She went right past me, and it was so strange because I felt I should have been able to reach out and grab her, but I couldn't. I've no idea how, but I'm 99% convinced that the time dimension was somehow broken for a while and allowing 2 different years to exist. Same space but different times. Story 11. A girlfriend of mine had a rather expensive wardrobe. Shoes, dresses, bags, etc., and she was leaving the country for an assignment for several months. She asked if I could store a box of clothing for her, and as I happened to have a warehouse with a climate-controlled section, I said sure. I put the box in a top rack in this climate-controlled room for safekeeping. The only 2 people with access to this room were myself and my personal assistant, and we hardly went into this room at all. This room housed some backup servers, some wine I was aging, and some of my art collection. Well, my girlfriend comes back after her assignment and asks for her box. I go to retrieve it, and the box is not where I'd put it. I hunted all through the room and the few racks there, no sign of the box. So I called my PA and asked her if she had seen or removed a box from the CC room. She said no, and she didn't even know there had been a box there. I tell my girlfriend I must have misplaced the box, although I was sure I knew where I'd put it. She freaked out and told me how valuable the items in it were, stuff she'd collected from a decade of modeling work. She figured there was at least $20,000 worth of stuff. I told her not to worry, it must be there and maybe somehow it got moved to a different section of the warehouse and we'd search for it. I assured her it would be found. It isn't a huge warehouse, total space of about 5,000 SFT, but racked to 2.8 meters, just over 9 feet, in the main section. About a third of the space I'd built a private martial arts gym, just for my use, and there was a small office/photo studio. In those areas a box would be easily visible. One afternoon, I go over and search for the box. I check everywhere twice. No sign of it. I come to the conclusion that either my PA might have moved it, or someone had been let in and taken it. So I make my PA come in, and I grill her over, who has accessed the premises in the last year. She doesn't recall anyone else coming in, but says she did reboot the backup servers once after a remote upgrade. She says she will check the entry logs to be sure, as every door and section is restricted by individual keycard access. I make her go over the entire warehouse with me to search again. We even open every similar size and bigger box to see if it was accidentally dropped into another box, but there is no such box or any box with those items. She later checks the logs and she can account for every instance of access being either me, her, or the cleaner. The cleaner works full-time for me and cleans the gym twice a week, but has no access to the CC room, which has a security card pad and is always locked with a key, just like the main door. She also checks the security camera logs for any recordings created by movement. Nothing shows up. I give my GF the bad news that unfortunately we can't locate it. She has a real fit. I feel bad and guilty, as I know she'd been really attached to the items and had left them in my care as she wanted to be sure they were safe. So, I offer to take her with me to do another search together, and I tell her if the box is really missing I'll give her $25,000 to replace the items. She grumbles that they can't be replaced, but is somewhat placated by the fact she might get some new items. We pick a day and go to the warehouse, and we do yet another complete search. Every room, rack, under table, bathroom, galley, kitchen, balcony, shower room, no space is left unchecked. It's probably my 6th time looking everywhere for it. Not there. I wrote her out a check for $25,000 as promised, and she duly cashes it and buys some new things. I wasn't happy about it, but it kept the peace, and I felt it was the right thing to do. I knew the items in the box were more valuable than the amount I'd given her. The labels were Chanel, Dior, etc. A couple of years pass, and I'm in the CC room. I look up at the empty space that I've been forlornly looking at every time I go into that room for something. Sitting in the exact spot I'd placed it before was a familiar box. I couldn't believe it. I lifted it down and opened it. It was my GF's box and was still full of her items. Everything looked intact. I hauled it down to my car and took it over to her. She was surprised but suggested it must have been my PA who hid it all along. I knew it wasn't. She'd worked for me for over a decade and was exemplary and highly professional. She was genuinely puzzled when I told her I'd found the box again in the same location. The leather items had a little mold, and the dresses and jackets smelt stale, but all that could be cleaned up. Of course GF was very happy. She got back her stuff, and had a windfall new wardrobe to boot. To this day I have no explanation for how this box disappeared for about 3 years and suddenly reappeared. The box was definitely not in the warehouse whilst it was missing, unless it was invisible and intangible. All entry logs can be accounted for by known persons, and only 2 of us into the CC room. Security cameras recorded 24/7 with night vision activated by movement. Nothing was recorded showing anyone carrying that box other than when I put it in and when I took it out. The cleaner had quit a year before I found the box. He won the lottery, but that's another story, and he no longer had access long before the box was found. Was I a victim of a prank or fraud? Or was this some glitch in the universe/matrix? Story 12. I'm not sure if this is exactly what you are meaning, but I will give it a go. Several years ago, I was working for a fairly large retailer. They were situated in an old building. They had been there for a few decades, I believe. There were 4 main floors, stories, 2 customer floors, a colleague and admin floor, and a warehouse on the top floor. The glitch appeared on the admin floor in one of the less used corridors. One end of the corridor was the main admin and colleague areas, the main lift, elevator, and staircase, staff room and toilets. On the other end of the corridor was a seldom used lift that took you to the back of the sales floor. It wasn't as big as the main lift and didn't really have much use unless the other one was broken or in use, as you would have to walk all around the corridors to get to anywhere useful. The only thing in the corridor itself was a plant room. A room containing all the air conditioning, heating and electrical equipment, and just used to store unusual fixtures and fittings that didn't get used often. So the corridor wasn't used that much. It wasn't well lit, but not so dim you couldn't see anything. Here comes the glitch, and it's hard to describe. Walking past one specific point, I would see. Well, that's the question. I don't know exactly. If you are a gamer, you will likely have seen something like it while playing a game. You know when an object or element doesn't appear quite right, or where a character or object spawns somewhere it shouldn't. You often get a blur or a line in the wrong place. It will only appear when looking at it from a certain angle or from a certain place. Well, this was exactly like that. Every time I walked past this one spot on the corridor, I would see what I can only describe as a line, near the wall but not on the wall, in the air as if it was attached to the roof with an invisible fitting. A perfectly straight line. It looked like maybe about 5 or 6 centimeters long. It would catch my eye every time I walked past. Always in exactly the same place. It would always catch my eye in the same spot, about a foot away, I guess. I would examine the spot and look for it, but could never see it up close, whatever it was. I examined the walls and ceiling, looking for some explanation, a crack in a tile or something that would reflect the light or, well, anything to explain it. I thought it might be a spider's web dangling down. That would explain why it appeared to be hovering in the air, but it wouldn't explain why it was exactly straight, or why it was still there years later. I tried looking at it from a different angle. I tried walking down the corridor in the opposite direction, and it didn't appear. I tried it up close, far away, higher, lower, but nothing. I tried purposefully trying not to look as I walked past, but it would always catch my eye. Every time. I asked other people if they had seen anything, but nobody had. It really was like a graphics glitch in a video game, and it only appeared to me. And it drove me mad with curiosity.